Hello, friends. Today, I'm going to talk about the balance between professional kinds of posts and personal kinds of posts on LinkedIn. One of the questions that I get a lot is how do we come up with content for our blog, for our videos, whatever we're doing, the content that we want to create as a professional organization or just as a person who is a subject matter expert or a thought leader in their business or community. And there's lots of different, I should do another video on that. There's lots of different ways to do that. One of the simple ways is to just go through your photo gallery on your phone. If you do a good job of taking photos, something that you've taken a photo of in the last month will inspire you to tell a story. But today's video is actually from a client of mine. Kelly, this one is thanks to your question. And Kelly's question was, my question about LinkedIn is what should the balance be on professional versus personal posts? And the answer is going to be different for every single person. And that is based on them and really their network and how they're not necessarily trying, how they actually present themselves to the world. So many people that know me, I put myself out there. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and there really is no difference between business and personal for me. I'm pretty much the same person on both sides of that fence. But there's plenty of people that play it much differently and it's not a bad thing, it's just different. They play it much more professional. Some of that could be that the business or industry that they are in, you can't be silly in the financial planning industry as much, or banking, or business acquisition, different things like that. And for me, yeah, sure, I'm silly, but the point is that I think the answer for everyone is going to be, how do you want to be perceived by people? So let's take a step back for a second and think about why we're using LinkedIn in the first place. Because this question from Kelly is specifically about LinkedIn, personal versus professional posting. And remember, LinkedIn is your cloud of relationships. There's a difference between your personal LinkedIn account and the company LinkedIn account, right? The company LinkedIn account, if you're doing updates on your company page on LinkedIn, you might lean more towards a professional tone and topic. But personally, I think that the people that you're connected to on LinkedIn are people that you used to go to high school with, to college with, that you used to work at the same company together. There are friends that you've met in the community that you've done business with. There are peers that are in your peer advisory groups. The people you're connected to on LinkedIn are your friends. They should know you. At least that's how I treat my network on LinkedIn. And for me, that answers the question of how often should I do personal versus professional posts and status updates on LinkedIn? I think it should be more personal than professional because people like you, they gravitate towards you, and that's why they're connected to you on LinkedIn. And I think they want to hear more about what you care about versus something that you've seen and just reposted. Now, if you're reposting something and adding your own spin to it, that's your own words, that's great because that's still you coming through. But my encouragement is always to be as close to yourself and being personal as you can when doing status updates on LinkedIn. So here's an example. I had a client that was talking recently, this was actually last week, that was saying, okay, we're doing a bunch of spring cleaning now. We're getting ready for spring cleaning at our house, but I don't know how, that seems very personal. Why would I blog about that? And after some conversation back and forth, we decided, well, there's a total tie to the business. You're going to do the same kind of spring cleaning in the business. And that conversation turned into, oh yeah, we actually just moved and we've updated this whole space and we should take pictures of the new space to put that out there. Because usually what happens is we're all so in the weeds in our businesses that we forget that this thing that happened that we got kind of just take for granted is newsworthy, and people didn't know that happened. It happens to me all the time. I forget to tell people, oh yeah, this thing happened. And it's important to just think about each week what's going on that you're taking for granted that might be worth talking about. So anyway, we tied that whole spring cleaning idea back to the business by talking about spring cleaning at home and at work and having pictures of both. And so that was a very personal status update for that client that they were putting out there, but they tied it back to the business. I've also shared the story when we were talking through that. one of the stories that I had was I am a scuba diver. And that's one of the things that I do as a hobby. And yes, I live in Kansas, so I have to get on a plane anytime I want to go scuba dive, but it's worth the effort. Anyway, one of my trips I took to Cozumel. For those of you guys that don't dive, one of the things that you do if you're in the ocean and there's current, there's a buoy that has a rope tied down to where you're going down when you're going to go down to like a wreck or something that you're going to swim around and scuba dive around. And so what I typically do, I'm a dive leader, and so I will jump in first off the boat, and if you just sat there, you quickly float away from the boat and the dive site. So what you do is you jump into the water, and there's usually ropes tied around the boat, and you drag yourself along those ropes and get to this guideline that goes down, and you actually submerge and start down the line. So I was down the line first, about 10, 15 feet down, and there's 12 other people behind me coming off the boat, getting to the line and getting down underwater and getting ready to do this 80-foot descent to this wreck. And I took a picture up of all these people on the line. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to use that picture, but it's just such a cool picture to see all these people basically blowing in the wind, hanging off this rope, getting ready to do a dive together. And when I sat down months later, actually, to write this story, the way I tied it to the business is that you never know when you're going to find yourself in a leadership role. And it takes organization for successful things to happen. And so I did a whole story about that. You know, I was the first one down the line, making sure everybody was okay. And then once everybody had gotten there, we followed our dive plan and had a great dive on this wreck in pretty good current. And then we went back up the line, back up to the boat, and had lunch later. So there's always a way, if you really think about it and try to be a little creative, to tie a personal story back to your business and make a case or a point about what's going on in your business, because all companies are made up of people, which is every one of those is a personal story. So that's my answer to how often should I do personal updates versus business updates, professional updates. I think a lot of them should be personal updates, especially on your individual LinkedIn profile. And on the company profile, I think it's important to give them that personal touch every single time instead of being too straight-laced. Even though case studies and facts about the industry and things like that are valuable information, I just don't think it really draws or resonates or moves people emotionally as much as when they see you hanging on the dive line or they see you doing spring cleaning, because they're invested in you as a person before they're invested in the company, the brand of the company. That's my belief. Anyway, I hope that was helpful as you're doing your content updates and trying to figure out how you're using LinkedIn with status updates. That hopefully will help you think of what you should say, how you should say it, and those kinds of things, with the goal being tell your personal stories, because that's how you keep everybody up to date on what's going on in your world. Oh, and before I forget, if you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel, please consider doing that below by clicking the little subscribe button. And also, it helps if you like it just by giving this video a thumbs up. I really appreciate that. Hope you have a great week.